gentlemen, the Honorable Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the United States House of Representatives.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Statuary Hall on this very special occasion. As Speaker of the House, it is my honor to welcome each and every one of you to the United States Capitol to celebrate Women's History Month, a special season to pay tribute to many leaders on whose shoulders we stand. Today, we have the privilege of honoring an all-American icon, Billie Jean King, and all of the trailblazing women in sports. Not only is Billie Jean one of the greatest tennis players of all time, men or women, but she has blessed our country with her devotion to activism. She has been a fearless voice for women and LGBTQ Americans, and for their many friends in Congress, a partner for progress. She's here today with her wife, Alana. Alana, thank you for being here. And it is appropriate that we honor Billie Jean this year, 50 years after we enacted Title IX. Thank you, Billie Jean, for fighting so fiercely for that. We're also blessed to be joined by Dr. Wendy Mink, daughter of the legendary Congresswoman Patsy Mink. Patsy Mink led the charge for Title IX so many decades ago. We'll talk more about that. And I've always wanted to acknowledge Senator Birch Bayh of Indiana, who led the way in the Senate. And let us now salute, and also salute Chairman Bobby Scott of the Education and Labor Committee, a steadfast defender of Title IX from the helm of this Education and Labor Committee. So on behalf of the Congress and the country, I welcome Billie Jean, her wife Alana, their family and friends, the remarkable athletes and dedicated leaders joining us here today. We'll hear more about them. But first, we're going to hear from our distinguished chairman, Bobby Scott, who will be introduced by the voice of God. Thank you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Bobby Scott, Chairman of the Education and Labor Committee of the United States House of Representatives.
Thank you very much, Speaker Pelosi, and thank you for your extraordinary work as Speaker of the House of the United States Representatives. And it's great to celebrate National Women's History Month. We're here with Billie Jean King, who not only was an extraordinary tennis player, but a great leader in women's equality. Billie Jean King, thank you so much. And also Dr. Wendy Mink. Her mother, Congresswoman Mink, was a true champion of education on the Education and Labor Committee and a driver of pivotal policy initiatives, including the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, the Comprehensive Child Development Act, and of course, Title IX. Thank you. Thank you for being with us today. This month is an important time to reflect on the hard work victories that we have achieved for women's equity, as well as the unfinished work that remains to be done. Take, for example, our continued efforts on wage equality. Nearly 60 years ago, the Equal Pay Act first codified the basic principle of equal pay for equal work, regardless of sex. And while our work to realize this principle has been steady, it has also been entirely too slow. Today, gender-based pay discrimination continues to rob women, particularly women of color, of the wages that they deserve. The COVID-19 pandemic has added a new obstacle to equal pay by driving millions of women out of the workforce. The gender gap will become only further entrenched unless we act to strengthen equal pay protections for women. Last April, the House passed the Paycheck Fairness Act, led by Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro of Connecticut. That bill will strengthen the Equal Pay Act to help women enforce their right to equal pay for equal work. Importantly, the legislation prohibits employers from requiring potential employees to provide their salary history during the hiring process. And as women return to the workforce, this provision will help prevent existing pay disparities from being perpetuated. Our workers can wait no longer. It is time for the Senate to pass the Paycheck Fairness Act, and that time is now. As we begin National Women's History Month, I join my colleagues in urging the Senate to pass the legislation and finally help to achieve pay equity in America. So thank you again to all of the speakers for their continued leadership, and I look forward to working together with all of you to realize the promise of equal pay for equal work. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Monique Steele.
Unbearable sorrow to the unrightable wrong, to love pure and chaste from afar, to try when your arms are too weary, unreachable star. This is my quest to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Gwendolyn Mink, daughter of the late Congresswoman Patsy Takemoto Mink.
That was so moving. I don't know how I can go on, but good morning. It's so nice to see all of you today. I'd like to thank Speaker Pelosi for inviting me here to spend a few minutes remembering my mother, Patsy Takemoto Mink, who was the first woman of color elected to Congress. When Mom began her first term in 1965. There were only 11 women in the House of Representatives. When Title IX became law 7 years later, there were only 13 women in the House. My mother was part of a tiny cadre of feminist legislators who, against all odds, put equality on the legislative agenda. Beginning around 1969-1970, my mother helped germinate the policy principle that became Title IX. In 1972, she helped shepherd that principle into law. Between 1973 and 1975, when the male athletics lobby campaigned to exempt phys ed and athletics from Title IX, Mom fought to keep school sports within its purview. Mom left Congress in 1977, but returned in 1990. From 1990 until her death in 2002, she defended Title IX against whack-a-mole attacks that arose frequently, especially with respect to athletics. Before Title IX, exclusion and suppression in the educational context capped the potential of girls and women and detoured their interests. This inequality had cascading effects on women's status in the economy and in society. It circumscribed women's choices. My mother was among the legions of girls and women who ran into the brick wall of sex discrimination in education when she was coming up. From the age of 4, she set herself on a course to become a physician. But when the time came to go to medical school, every school she applied to turned her down because she was female. She also was among the millions of mothers whose daughters were discouraged or locked out or socialized by inequality. She saw her own daughter forbidden from taking on certain roles in school and required to engage in others because I am female. She saw me rejected from one of the colleges I applied to because the admission of women was capped by a quota. Title IX opened doors that had been closed to women and also gave girls and women a critical policy lever to hold those doors open and open them wider. Title IX's broad reach has yielded transformations that ripple through society, from stunning accomplishments by girls and women in athletics to breathtaking increases in women's enrollment in law school and med school, from 10% in 1970 to more than 50% today, to equity protections for pregnant and parenting students, to the requirement that schools work to prevent and redress sexual harassment and sexual violence. Title IX remains a foundational tool for sex and gender equity in schools and for girls and women, for LGBTQ students, and trans kids. We still have a ways to go, though. A few months before my mother passed away, we celebrated the 30th anniversary of Title IX. In remarks on the House floor, she appealed for vigilance and asked that we greet each anniversary not only as a commemoration of past achievements, but as an opportunity to rededicate ourselves to building a future based on equality, a future that Title IX will help us reach. And so, in my mom's memory and in honor of Title IX, I ask that we all rededicate ourselves to this work today. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Billie Jean King, founder of the Women's Sports Foundation, the Women's Tennis Association, and the Billie Jean King Leadership Initiative.
Yeah. Yes. To all of you, that's for you. I'm clapping for you, not for me. Thank you, Madam Speaker, Chairman Scott, and all the distinguished members of Congress and guests here today. Wendy, I'm allowed to call her Wendy. Wendy, And thank you for all you do, and also for continuing your mother's legacy of social justice. It is only fitting, as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the passage of Title IX, that we are here this morning in the very building where the 37 words of Title IX were crafted. Title IX is one of the most important pieces of legislation of the 20th century. It is a law that speaks to the importance of gender equity in this country and stands as a benchmark of global significance. I was a pre-Title IX student in the early 1960s. I went to Cal State LA in an era when there were classroom quotas for women in almost every college and university in the land. But a few miles down the road, Arthur Ashe and Stan Smith had full tennis scholarships. Arthur got to go to UCLA, and Stan was at USC. Arthur and Stan and I would go on to be the #1 tennis players in the world. While they each had a full ride, and I was living large, I thought. I was a playground director at a local elementary school, which I loved, and I worked in the locker room handing out equipment, which I did not like. You can never understand inclusion until you've been excluded. You can never understand inclusion until you've been excluded. Today, because of Title IX, things for women are different. We are seeing an increased number of women getting college degrees. We are also celebrating 50 years of women being allowed to receive sports scholarships. Sports are so visible, many think Title IX is just about sports, when in fact it is about gender equity in education. The reason women get sports scholarships today is because the law states no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. The key word is activity. Senator Birchby once told me there was debate over including the word activity, and he was so happy they left it in. Without the word activity, women would not have received sports scholarships. Looking ahead to the next 50 years of Title IX, we must increase compliance with the law and find a workable solution for name, image, and likeness laws. And most importantly, we need to give attention to those who have thus far been left behind, defining inclusive opportunities for transgender athletes, athletes with disabilities, and girls and women of color. Yeah, that's good. Over the years, there have been many champions of Title IX, and they come from all walks of life. The real champions of Title IX are the women and men who worked in these halls 50 years ago and cast a vote to stand up for equality. 5 of them are some of my favorite sheroes and heroes. Congresswoman Patsy Mink, Congresswoman Edith Green, Senator Birchby, Senator Ted Stevens, and Dr. Bernice Sandler, who was not in the Congress but was very helpful in making it happen. Without their leadership, Title IX may not have become law. And I ask you to think of them every time your colleagues want to raise a challenge to this law. Title IX, it is our job to protect it and respect it. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the United States House of Representatives.
Good afternoon. Now it's still morning. Good morning, everyone. Isn't it wonderful to just bask in the glow of Billie Jean King in the Capitol of the United States? Isn't it wonderful to be so encouraged by the words of Dr. Wendy Mink? I love talking about her mother. And aren't we proud of Bobby Scott, our chairman, who's been a champion on all the issues that have been spoken about and so many more today. Billie Jean, I want you to know that COVID prevents us from having a totally packed place, and our director of protocol has given us the maximum number. But so many of our women members are here, and I wish they would all just stand up because this is an unusually large number of women who are here. And we are joined by our distinguished whip, Jim Clyburn, father of 3 daughters, so he never misses a women's event. As we all know, this June, our nation marks the 50th anniversary of Title IX. That's what we're here to celebrate. Indeed, when we enacted Title IX, when Congress did, America took a major leap forward on our founding ideal that all are created equal. In the decades since, the landmark law has been a pillar of equity, opportunity, and education, helping women choose and chase their dreams in the classroom, on the field, and in every arena, as has been mentioned. For this historic victory, Congress and the country owe a debt of gratitude to Congresswoman Patsy Mink, the godmother of Title IX. I want to talk to you a little bit about her personally because Bobby and I had the honor, and some others, Maxine, others of us here have had the honor of serving with her. Jan Chipkowski, anybody else? You did, Jim Maloney, Sheila. So we, to serve with her was to, we learned from her every day, let's say. But she was rising from a sugar plantation town on Maui. Her parents were very well educated, but in the times, all they could do was pick sugar cane, and she was there with them. Congressman overcame much discrimination to become a progressive champion and the first woman of color, as Wendy mentioned, the first woman of color to ever serve in the Congress of the United States. She had a truly fierce nature, but you would never know it because she always had a smile. In enacting Title IX, crafting the legislation, fighting to get it to the floor, and through her sheer force of will, engineering its final passage. Now let me just tell you about that. This is the story that when I came in '87 and served with her when she came back in '90. 50 years ago, around now, or a little bit earlier, Billie Jean, she had been fighting for this, fighting for it. But as was mentioned, there were very few women in Congress at the time. She won the ability to have the Speaker agree to bring the bill to the floor. But coming up the next day, that night before, Wendy was in an automobile accident. And what does she do? She's a mom. She has to go, of course, to her daughter. Bill could not be brought up. So she had to fight the fight again to get the guys to bring the bill to the floor. And let me just say, this sounds very victorious now. It wasn't easy. Well, it was going to take away from this, and it was going to take away from that. And so she had a real fight. Understand that. But she not only passed it, she defended it too, leading the charge against the effort to exempt athletics from Title IX. They wanted to exempt athletics. Can you imagine? She triumphed, even having to leave Washington, as I say, to tend to Wendy, who had been in a severe car accident. We're thrilled that soon Patsy's portrait will be hung here in the Capitol so that she can be celebrated for all who walk through these halls. It's about time. It's long overdue. It's so exciting for us that Billie Jean King is here. And Bobby Scott said to me, as Billie was approaching, it's wonderful that Billie was the best tennis player in the world, but she's one of the best people in the world. She should be celebrated for everything else that she has done. And again, we celebrate Billie Jean and all women athletes who fought for Title IX and broke down the door for future generations. Indeed, Billie Jean was a game changer in many respects. All are in awe of her pioneering career, rising from public tennis courts, as she mentioned, in Long Beach, to become the top-ranked player in the world. Her iconic victory in the Battle of the Sexes brought visibility and respect not only to women's tennis, but to all women's sports. She was also an outspoken advocate. She was and is. She founded the Women's Tennis Association to build a better future for the sport. She has offered courageous voice for the LGBTQ community, and she was a champion of Title IX, testifying before Congress and rallying the nation. Continues to do that. Today, determined women activists are carrying on the fight for equality, from the women's national soccer team demanding equal pay to WNBA players lending their voices to the cause for racial justice and many more. We are also fortunate to have with us today Coach Tamika Dudley. Tamika Dudley is an all-star, and several stellar players of the 2022 championship-winning Sidwell Friends girls basketball team, the best girls team in the country. Will you stand up so we can give us a wave? Coach, give us a special wave, Coach. There's the coach. Thank you. Coach Tamika Dudley, highly acclaimed. How inspiring it is to be joined today by the next generation of women leaders. Let us congratulate your program for making history, the first time a coach and a player from the same team both won the prestigious Naismith Awards in the same year. As we gather here today, our thoughts are, of course, with the people of the Ukraine. We must be prayerful and we must be helpful, and we will have legislation on the floor today to do just that. We especially salute the brave Ukrainian women fighting to defend their democracy and protect their families. At the same time, let us pray for the WNBA star Brittany Griner. Right there, there's her picture. She in the orange shirt. She's visiting us with my colleague, Congressman Stanton of Arizona. She was playing for the Phoenix team. When she visited the Capitol recently, she is now in prison, being detained by the Russians. We want her to know that we are thinking of her and praying for her, and we want the Russians to know that too. Congress and the country are sending our prayers to her, her wife, and her family. With this reception, we celebrate all the women athletes who have blazed trails for our daughters and granddaughters. So let us, and many of them are live stream because of the limitations COVID presents to us. So let us summon the indomitable spirit of our guest of honor, who, as the title of her book affirms, has for decades been all in for women, for equality, for justice. And let us renew our pledge to carry on the fight for full equality for every American, because we know, in terms of women, when women succeed, America succeeds. Thank you again, everyone, for being here today. Please enjoy the reception, and now let's be all in. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Billie Jean King, for honoring us. Thank you, Wendy Mink. Thank you, Bobby Scott. Thank you all. Come.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the formal